Awesome. Hey, how's it going? So I am Zypher. If you know me, you probably know me by that. But since we're all here and we're all friends, you can call me Michael. And I really love what we have in our community. It's kind of special in that there are very few communities that are open to sharing and having events like this. And as part of that, part of the team that runs CSSConf AU with some other great people here, and Glenn, who'll be speaking later. And I also help run one of the bigger front-end meetups back home in Melbourne. And I really love open source. I love that we can share our code and we can all learn from each other and really build on the shoulder of giants. And as part of that, I contribute to projects like LibSass and Node-Sass. But this isn't a Sass talk. I'm not here to tell you how amazing Sass is, whether you should use a Sass or not. This is actually a story. And it's my story. And it's a story all about how my life got flip-turned upside down. I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there, and tell you how I became a real programmer. So I'm going to start with a small aside. So back home in Australia, until the end of primary school, so about the age of 12, 13, your entire schooling, you work in a pencil. You never use pens. And the idea is that in your final year of primary school, you go through this thing called the pen license, and you have to prove that your handwriting is legible enough that you can use a pen and not make mistakes. And so I got my pen license. I was the last one to get my pen license out of my entire year level, and to this day, I'm pretty sure I got out of obligation because I deserved it. And it's just about the age of 12, and so if we think back, this is looking back at my life, this is I started programming very early. By the age of 8 or 9, I was already playing with things like BASIC, making really simple bitmap pixel games and that kind of stuff. And then not long after that, I learned HTML because it's really simple. You needed a notepad. My computer was really terrible, and this kind of worked. And actually, it was about this time that I got my pen license. So at this point, I could code pretty competently in 2 relatively basic languages and get some stuff done. Come to early high school, I start messing around with Hello World apps and really command line apps in Python, and then moving on to things like C. And then in very early high school, I discovered Flash. And this blew my mind. I could actually see what I was doing. No more Hello World, no more CLIs, really pretty interactive stuff. And then Flash shipped ActionScript, and that blew my mind. Object-oriented programming inside this. ActionScript is a pretty language. And then later in high school, we had part of our schooling, we learned Excel and Word and the built-in VBA language in that. And from that, we moved to some of us who were really curious started playing with Visual Basic, and then this web thing kept eating at me. So I found out this PHP and got involved in site point stuff, and I was big on PHP at the time. So I learned how to play with the web. Then uni comes around, and we all have to do Java, and the web disappears from me for a while. But I can't get away. I keep coming back to it. So I learned jQuery, not JavaScript, jQuery. I'll proudly say that. So then I got a job writing PHP and jQuery for a company after dropping out of uni. And I started messing with C#. It was an internal project we had that people started using foolishly. And then we moved on to some Ruby stuff. And then I couldn't get away from this web thing. Later on, I started working an agency, moved mostly to front-end stuff. I started doing your CSS3 and HTML. I got really excited. Started messing some JavaScript stuff. That eventually leads to things like Node. And then I got really into performance. And anyone worth their salt in performance wants to know everything about how everything is working. So you get Nginx and Apache, and you're tweaking things, and how can I make this faster? Then as my app started getting bigger, and I was working with bigger companies. It's this thing is crazy. It's all over the place. How do we manage this? So I started playing with Sass, and we moved forward to today, and everyone's using React. And this all seems kind of crazy. Who does all these languages? And it actually ends up being really simple because they all spring from this thing called C-style languages. So we're looking at something like C++, for example, which is one of those big boy languages. And we look at it, we see things all right, we can figure out we got a variable assignment here. We got a function, we're taking a string, adding the input of the function to another string, or defined and returning that, and just calling that function. It's pretty simple code. We've ordered something like this in any language. The only kind of weird thing in this is we see the string keyword, which is we assume is a type. We know what strings are. Like, that's all right. That's pretty bad. It's nothing too difficult. But then you take that and look at JavaScript, and like, it's pretty much the same thing, right? You got a variable, you got the var keyword instead of the string. Like, we don't care about the type anymore. We still got the function name, the function parameter. We're still plussing two strings together, returning that string, and calling the function. And it's like, all right, well, this is pretty straightforward. We go to PHP, and like, it's almost exactly the same thing. We've dropped a var and added like $signs, and otherwise, it's the exact same code. Take this to Sass. Exact same thing. Like, we've taken the function return word, put that symbol in front of them. But under the covers, they're all kind of the same things. They all have the same heritage. Then you move towards your newer, fancier languages, something like Ruby, where it's like all those things that made the code readable are now gone. And you kind of, like, if you've seen like the previous examples, you can figure out what's going on. But jumping into something like this, like, all right, they've taken it too far. So it's like, it's not hard. This programming thing is actually really easy. Like, languages, specifically languages, is so easy, but actually the whole thing of like learning how to program is hard. Like, what is a Rubyism? What's a PHPism? What's a JavaScriptism? And so, for the last 4 years, I transitioned almost primarily to entirely front-end. Like, so it was the hardest problem I could find, the most enjoyable problem. And things started getting interesting. I started running meetups and hanging out with entirely more front-end crowds. Then we'd hire more developers in my current job, and they'd never seen me write back-end code. So you kind of ask questions. It's like, you get into these weird debates, like, is X even programming? Is CSS actually programming? Like, why don't you do real code? Why are you doing this front-end thing? Like, you seem so smart. What are you doing with your life? And this is like, and this is pretty pervasive. And I think about this, and I'm like, what is real programming? It's like, in the front end, we're dealing with maintainability and scaling issues that we do on the back end. We're just doing a bunch of operations. We care about performance. And we have to do things like they don't have to worry about. We don't have to worry about compatibility. They don't have to worry about compatibility across platform. Like, their code, they write it on PHP, it runs on that server. It's always going to work on that server. Very little is going to break it. And we've got this like whole array of things, not just different browsers, different browser versions. Like, our life is significantly harder. And so I pondered on this for a while, and it really kind of bugged me. And I bumped into this mention of the Dunningkruger effect. And it's kind of a two-part thing. And one is like, people who only know a little bit about a thing can extrapolate what they know and realize, yeah, well, this is easy. Like, I can make a round corner, so obviously I can make like a pie chart out of gradients. Like, I can fill this thing in. I can do like, there's so much I can do because I can do this really tiny thing. And you don't know enough to know how much you don't know until you start doing it. And we start doing this in browsers all the time. Like, this looks really simple. When you start messing with it, and like, this is really hard. And the other side of this, and the really kind of toxic part that I find, is people who are good at something assume everybody is as good as they are. And so they belittle what they know. It's like, well, I know this, everybody knows this, so it can't be that hard. And you mix these things together, and you have like the whole idea of like front-end devs. People tell them we're not programmers, and we believe we're not programmers. So this is kind of the thing that's kind of bugged me for a while. It's kind of the inspiration behind this talk of like, why aren't we considered programmers? So in 2011, I joined a company, 99 Designs, and we had this like ad hoc. It was a very developer-driven, very small team. We had like multiple generations of the UI, and like, as you can imagine, PHP devs writing front-end code, it was everything you imagine. It was unpleasant, it was a mess, and I joined as a back-end developer saying that when you care about the front end, I'm there. This is what I want to do. So come around to 2012, and we decided, all right, we need to do this responsive thing. It's kind of cool. We need to do it. So we did a responsive rebrand, started working on this thing, and I convinced them we've got to do Sass. Like, I've used it before. It's incredible. This is going to save us so much time. And we started building our internal framework based off Foundation. And because we're all engineers, we built a framework for engineers. And as a result, like, things were good for a while. We understood what we were doing. Like, our PHP guys could write our CSS, and like, it worked, and it was nice, and like, everyone could teach the same languages. We were using Sass as like an API for the most things. But as this happened, we get more and more code, and as we all know, compilation times just like blew out. Like, at one point, we had like 6-minute, 8-minute compilation times. Brought in some like compass magic, got that like 2-minute compilation times. It was kind of brutal. And our backend devs want no part of it. It's like, what are you doing? It used to work before, it's just CSS. So we had enough, and we started investigating this thing called libsas. The idea behind it was like, it was the Ruby Sass project taken to C++, and the assumption like, well, if it's in C, it'll just be faster. Like, there are other really great benefits of this, but the big thing was like, we can put it in C, we'll make it fast, solve all the problems, and then everyone can have super fast Sass. I mean, we played with it for a long time, and we just couldn't get there. Like, basic fundamental features were missing. So you couldn't even polyfill. It was like, oh, variables are broken. Like, well, that's a problem. So we kind of played with this and abandoned it. We kind of killed the backbone. We wanted to come back to it. And so later that year, I went to the first Camp SAS in San Francisco. And this was my chance. Like, I had questions for these people. So I was there, and I ran into Chris Epstein, who is one of the main writers of SAS, along with Natalie. And I ran into Hampton, who was running Camp SAS, but also was like the original inventor of SAS and the person who had the vision for libsas in the first place. And then I ran into Aaron, who was the person Hampton convinced to write libsas. So I had questions for like, why? Why is it not in Node? Our entire front-end toolchain is in Node. Like, this is days of like grunt with the thing, and like, why not just make it a Node thing so we can all play together, have one big nice thing? Surely Node's faster than Ruby. Let's just do this. And I was kind of head full of steam. I'm like, I'm going to come back. I'm going to write this. Like, I've started thinking about it pretty intensely. I've been writing SAS almost full time for 2 years at this point, building this framework. And I talked to Hampton. He goes, you could totally do that. You could definitely write this in Node, but just know how much time. This is the next 2 years of your life. Like, there are so many edge cases. You have no idea how much work has gone into making SAS do what SAS does until you start messing with it. And I'm like, well, I know. This feels back like Dunningkruger effect. It feels easy, but it's not. Like, all right. And I'm like, so why is it taking so long then? Why has this project been around for years and like, there's almost no progress? And it's like, well, the intersection of people who write C++ and CSS is 0. Like, nobody cares. This happens because I'm paying somebody, and I've stopped paying him, and it stopped happening. So like, all right, well, it's legit. So I come back home, 2014, I'm like, I don't think I have enough of my life to write a Node version of this. Like, so I'll bite the bullet. Like, I'll do some C. I'll do this. Let's get it working. I've taught myself a bunch of languages. Let's do it. Completely aware that I didn't know a single thing about C++. Like, I'd never written a line of C++ that compiled. It was really scary to me. Like, C++ was like, that's the big boy language. Like, people running operating systems and games, and like, this is it. When I think about programming, it's like, oh, I'm messing around on the web, but these guys are building things. So it was kind of been a scary thing for me a long time. I put it off for a long time on purpose. But I figured, all right, let's just do this. We're going, we go start the adventure. And we've got to get started. And like, thinking back to my university days, like, what is the scary thing about C++? What do I know? I know it's a compiled language, which like for most of like the servers, like it's all runtime. It just kind of happens as you do it. It's interpreted. Compiled languages they do a lot more work. Initially, there's a lot of upfront cost, but it's kind of why they run faster. And there was this linker, and it linked to things. Yeah. I actually still don't know what that does really. I know it causes some pain. I don't need to know, so I don't. So there are make files. So I'm trying to think back to like, surely we can't be too diverged from front end to back end. Like, we all kind of do the same thing. So I'm thinking back, like, so make files are essentially grunt for C or for Unix people. Like, before there was JavaScript, there was make, and then we decided, nah, we got JavaScript, grunt, the grunt make. You know, pre-process directives, like these are relatively complicated, and I don't understand them completely, but everywhere I looked through the libsas source code, notice is include everywhere. It's include. I'm like, well, this is obvious. This is just like import, right? We've done this before. There are some differences, but for the most part, like, I don't need to know. It's just going to work the same way. It's strictly typed, which is my first example. It's like, we're just going to define our types. Like, oh, cool, let's replace var with string, we're sorted, good. How many types can there really be? Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing. I can extrapolate this. Like, it is just functions and variables. I was pretty convinced this shouldn't be too hard. You've got our header files, and these are, whoa. Sorry, Java kicked in. Skip this version. Cool. So we have our header files, and our header files are, I try to think of them as like your bow or NPM. Like, they're not, but they are in the way they express intent. It's like, this won't work without this thing that I've told you I need. I'm like, all right, well, I don't need to mess with them too much. I can kind of get by without touching them, so I'll just copy and paste what I see. So we're going to do a quick SAS lesson. So the big feature missing from SAS that we really needed was SAS maps. And so SAS had a data structure called lists. And lists we kind of see in CSS is like space-separated thing, like any kind of shorthand, like paddings or margins. Essentially, we treat them as lists inside of SAS. And we have a bunch of list functions. We can define a list as this becomes like an array, essentially. We can call nth and say, give me the first item in this. Like, unlike other languages, it's 1 indexed, not 0 indexed, but it's pretty simple. We've all done this kind of stuff. So then we have maps. And maps are kind of like your hash map, or in PHP it's still an array. So kind of simple here. We have a list of values, we have a hash of values, the map values, we can like name the thing we want, which is better than nth. We can just say, oh, get me this thing, like by name. And this is like, people have been screaming about this for years. People wanted this in Sass for so long, and it finally landed. But libsas was just so far off the ball that this is the thing we needed. Our entire framework was based off maps. I figured if we can just do maps, then we can get there. We're pretty much there. So this is my goal. I was going to work on bringing Sass maps into libsas, trying to figure it out. And so the way Sass works is everything called Sasspec. Like I said, test suite. It's a whole different project, and all it takes is a bunch of Sass files and turns them into CSS files and compares them. Like, if the stuff, given the same Sass file, if you produce the same CSS as RubySass does, you've passed. So I'm like, all right, well, that's easy. So our first step was creating a pull request. It's like, let's create all the specs for the map functions. The big map API, let's write all the specs so we know it's going to work. And this got merged. And I'm like, all right, like getting stuff merged in open source is hard. So like to have a team wants your stuff, that's pretty cool. So getting that PR merged made me feel really good. Like, I admit I was even like a little giddy at the time. I was like, whoa, this happened. So it gave me this rush of confidence. And in that moment, I felt like, is this possible? Maybe I can do this. You know, C++ thing is easy. I got this. This is good fun. This is easy. And that voice of doubt creeps in, and you're like, they've put their trust in you. You better not screw up. And then it sinks in. I didn't write C++. I turned Sass into CSS. My cat walking on my keyboard could have mistakenly done this. But it's OK. I've got this. There's nothing to lose. Like, they're not expecting a pull request. Like, if I pull it off, it'll be fantastic and surprising. But what if the PR sucks? What if they can tell I'm a fraud immediately? What if my shitty code is out there for the whole world to see forever? What am I going to do? I'm like, all right, so what if it sucks? All right. I tried. They're good people. They know I wanted to help. Just do it. I've talked to them. It's OK. Like, it's all going to be all right. So I'm going to get into how I started. So not knowing C, I jumped into the code base, and I figured, all right, maps are kind of like lists. Like we've seen, they're pretty much the same thing. So I've just started throwing some code at the wall. Like, let's see what sticks. So this is all samples from my original PR. And I'll take a short look, just see if you can find the pattern of what's going on here. There's a bit more of it. I don't really need the code, but we can see that we've got bringing maps in here. Done it again, same kind of thing. And this is what I call like CPDD. This is the pattern that I use to really get this sorted. And what it is copy-paste driven development. Like, if we just take a short look, like anywhere you saw the keyword map, you saw the keyword list. Because maps are like lists. So I figure if I can just make maps do what lists do, then modify them a bit, it's pretty much the same thing. The slight difference here is like, maps are keys and values, not just values. Like otherwise, it's like two lists, right? All right, so let's move forward. So the next one was cedd. So usually when you write code and you get an error, like we've seen Sass, like, oh, it's out of bounds. You've asked for the third element, there is no third element. A useful error message, you kind of find your code. C++, when things go wrong, things go wrong. It's just like, it's broken. Figure it out. I'm like, what am I doing? How do I get past this? Like, so going to this, I discovered this thing called GDB, which I just Stack Overflowed and just kind of messed. I know 3 commands, and the 3 commands that I always use and they work every time. But you get something like this, and it's like, all right, OK, sure. I'm seeing OS, I'm seeing symbol, I'm seeing very scary words in there. What have I broken? What have I done? Yeah, wow, it's a long one. All right. I don't know how. There it is. So that's the thing that's actually broken. So this tells me, somewhere in this parenthese function is like an issue. And this is the stack trace. Like most languages will give you this as a useful thing. And you get there eventually, but like, yeah, this is so scary. Every time I see that, I kind of panic a bit. So that's compiler error-driven development. And this is because it is a compiled language. Like, it knows when things are wrong, for the most part, before they're actually wrong. They can kind of stop you. And if it wasn't for this, I don't think I ever would have shipped my LibSass stuff in the first place, because I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. So this was like weeks and weeks of work. I eventually had a pull request. I had some help from people I work with who were great. And so I did this, and wow, but by a series of like unfortunate and poor decisions on their behalf, they merged this code. And I pretty much explicitly say, you probably shouldn't merge this. Like, this is a start. Someone better than I am can fix this, but take what I've done. Like, I think it says there, I don't write C++. But they're excited. We started, like, they wanted to merge this. They got it out there. It was a big pull request. People were really happy. And it was a really big problem. The big problem was I'm terrible at C. And so when we looked at, when I was writing the map functions, I was writing them like two sets of lists. If you know basic computer science, it's a terrible idea. Like, this is like the map get function turned to Sass, but it's what C++ code was doing. And it's like, oh, you have a map and a key, just loop through the entire map each time, find the key that matches, bring the value back. It's pretty naive. We've all done it before, but this is crazy slow. This is terrible code. And it was so slow in the fact that I think the first iteration was a couple orders of magnitude slower than Ruby. So no matter how fast C is, like, there's no substitute for terrible code. So I asked why they shipped this, and the thing is, like, performance was a feature to them. You know, I opened an issue saying, like, I know we've done this thing, it's terrible, but we had multiple iterations, and I'm coming here saying, like, I know why it's broken, but I don't know how to fix it in C. Like, I know how to fix it in JavaScript. It took a bit of research, and we finally got a second PR, and it's like now in its third or fourth iteration. At this point, it's like lightning fast. It's probably one of the fastest parts of LibSass, like this map thing. It's got a lot of work into it. It's like a lot of the work for people before me, like people who wrote really fast C libraries that eventually learned how to use their APIs. And its purpose as a feature is something that's really important to us. Like, the community wanted maps. They didn't care how fast they were. They just wanted to be able to use them. So we've probably seen something like this. This is a comparison going around, like, LibSass is 2 times slower than PostCSS, which is written in JavaScript, and we're in C. So we must be doing something really terribly wrong, or they're just doing really great engineering. And like, we know this. We know it's slow. There wasn't really a concern to make it too fast for us. Like, we were really on the laurels of C. C is fast, so we'll just be fast by being in C. And it doesn't always work out, but like, we give people the features they wanted. So we've all seen something like this. And like, we've all seen it in regards to CSS. But more accurately, it's like things I don't understand. If I don't know how to do a thing, it's painful, and like, I don't know what I'm doing, why is it yelling at me, how do I fix this? So yeah, this is like one of the newer iterations, and we can see in the previous version, we're like a second or so slower than like RubySass, and a new version, I think this is the version where we're actually equivalent. We got it as fast as RubySass, and we're super excited. Well, I was, because I fixed my terrible code. So we'll come around to 2005, this is out there, and through continued poor decisions on behalf of Hampton, I am now one half of the core team of LibSass. 1/3. Still don't know C, by the way. We've added a new contributor now, which is really awesome. The team is growing. I'm also now the project lead of Node-Sass, which is a JavaScript project that's mostly C. So that's a continuing theme. And I'm up here on stage in front of you all, talking about how terrible I am as a programmer, but yet still a programmer. And so I've talked about these techniques for how you can take what you know in Sass and JavaScript and write like big boy stuff like C and C++. You don't have to be afraid. And like, words are cheap. So let's write some code. Awesome. So we're going to write some LibSass today. So yeah, clap when it works. So this is a compact function. It's pretty simple. All it does is it takes a list. So we have a list here of values. You know, some truthy, some false. We know from JavaScript, false is false, null is false. So it kind of just takes this list. You know, if you've actually passed in a list, if you haven't passed in a list, which return that list for you. It's like no op. But then it's going to loop through your list, find things that look truthy, add them to a new list, and return that new list. It's like returning the stuff that's probably null you didn't mean to have in the first place. So that's cool. This is the Sass version of it, and if we run it, we can see it works. Like false is gone and null is gone. And this is cool. We're like turning Sass into C++ code and then executing that and bringing back out Sass is super slow. Like, we want native methods, right? We want like this nth function, like And these loops, how fast are these? Because they're in C++. So let's bring this into C++ the way I would program libsass. So if there's anyone here whose bosses are in control of whether you use libsass or not, they should leave. This is how we write this code. It's not very professional. Way to lose faith in code right here. So we can probably guess that this thing is something called functions. It's a functions file. Cool. So the one thing we do know, when I know a lot of Sass, so for me this is kind of easy. I know I need something. This is like a function called index. So if you look for index is a function in Sass. It's kind of like, find me where in this array this thing happens. Let's keep looking. What do these things look like? These don't look right. Yeah, index function. All right, cool. So we can see this kind of looks like it takes in a list. If the list is empty, return the list. Sure, we've done this before. Loop over the list. If it equals the value we passed in, return that number. Cool, so that's kind of similar to what we're doing. We're looping over, taking a list, and returning a value. But what we want to do, we want to turn a list, not a number. And that's similar to the append function, which is actually right here. So what's this doing? This is a lot of code. Let's not worry about that right now. So it's all right, so we want something that's kind of like index. So let's just copy and paste this. We know we want it to call it compact, not index. Let's just change that to compact. We don't want a value, we just want a list, so let's get rid of the value. All right, so we can just guess that this is creating a list. We don't want values, so that can go away. Don't know what this means, but sure. Cool, so this is comparing if the value at I equals the value we passed in. We don't have a values. Obviously, we don't want this. And we don't really want this. So what we're checking for is this thing truthy, right? If it's truthy, you want it. If we don't. So it's in Sass, it's is this true, right? If this is true, then do a thing. So that's just returning a number. It's not quite what we want, but we see the pattern here. It's very similar to our Sass code of loop through, if, do something, return. So in append is kind of like the list stuff we need, right? It's results. Well, we know results are the same in every language. That's the thing we're returning. So let's create one of those. Setting a length. Well, we don't know the length. Let's get rid of that and just default it to 0. Sure, whatever that means. Cool. So what we need to do is add a new thing to the list. We know this is going to do this. Let's figure it out. Add thing to list, sure. It's probably going to work. We don't have v, but v is this value, right? So let's just copy and paste that. It's probably going to work. We need to return the results. This part we know. We're programmers. Cool, so this looks almost exactly like our Sass code. Oh, I missed one there, compact. Oh, that could have been bad. I do have the license, but I upgraded, and it doesn't work on 3.0. My stuff's broken. All right, let's run this again. Actually, no, it's not run. First, we've got to compile our code. So run our grunt file, or our make file. Oh, yeah, that looks cool. Oh, it compiled. Did not expect that. All right. So it's commenting out our compact function, so we know we're using our code. Let's run it. Let's save that. What? No. There we go. So yeah, it's spitting out the word compact, which is not what we want at all. So it's actually not finding our function at all. So all right, we've done something wrong. Look at our index function. What's this? Index sig? Sure, let's search for that in the code base. Ah, there we go. We've missed some stuff. All right. Turn index into compact. What else have we missed? That's string index. We just did that. Yeah, there we go. Sneaky header files. All right, let's recompile this. Oh. This is error-driven development right in front of you. So, contact. All right, so obviously, there's a thing called compact somewhere doesn't exist, but we know index exists. So let's search for index. What have we missed? These don't look right. That's underscore index. Nope. There we go. You can tell there's no compact near it. Oh. Let's do it. Hey, no errors. It compiled, but it hasn't done the thing. We've noticed like null and false is still there. Why is false there? Obviously, our if check isn't cutting it. So let's go back to our code. That's the header file. Right, so we're missing something here. This if check is obviously failing. Like things that are false are coming in true. So it's like look for false. Oh. How are people doing false? Is false. There we go. Now we're doing it. So if this is false, we only want if it's true, right? Like if it's not false. Yeah. All right. We've just C++. Wish it was a joke. That's how most of LibSass gets written. So, running out of time, so we just come to today. We have a new release of LibSass coming out. It is now the fastest preprocessor out there. We're now at, after 3 major versions, we're almost a complete feature parity. The new version, which is on this list, will actually be complete feature parity with some edge cases. I get to hang out with these great people. So this is Hampton and Chris. It's thanks to these people that I'm able to be up here and tell you about this stuff, and that you can use LibSass today. I could have thanked Natalie, who is pretty much the person who runs Sass and does all the language design for Sass. And I couldn't have done this. I would never put that PR up if I didn't think they'd be supportive. Having met them before and having known the Sass community, there are some great people in this community. I've spoken today, Una and Claudina, who have been since meeting them after doing this work, they know who I am, they're really supportive, the stuff we're doing, and they're excited for it. And the other LibSass committers, Marcel has done most of this new version by himself, he's been out of control. Adele, who runs Node-Sass, eventually passed it on to me and still contributes heavily. And our newest contributor, Masin, who's just come to both projects, doing lots of great work for a long time, and passing on the buck from what Hampton did to me. It's come in, help us out, you're doing good work, be part of the team. So this is it. Thanks. You can do this too. And stay sassy.